So my little sister actually graduated high school this past year, and something was really interesting about her high school experience. During her time in high school, she had over 6 friends who committed suicide. And in her grade, she actually had a lot more that committed suicide. 13 Reasons Why is a show that actually covers a teen's suicide, covers all the situations that led up to her suicide, and it actually shows the suicide itself in a very graphic manner. Now what's interesting is my little sister actually watched this entire show beginning to end, and it was extremely triggering for her. But she actually watched it not only once, but she watched it twice.
Beyond just her experience, when 13 Reasons Why came out, it had a lot of popularity. Like, it quickly rose to one of the most watched shows, but it also had a ton of media backlash, where people and mental health professionals were talking about it and discouraging watching it, but yet it continued to rise in the number of people that were watching it. So there was kind of a disconnect between what was being recommended and what people were doing. So within the last 10 years, teen suicide rates have been rising drastically, which is what makes Britt's sister's story so relevant to why 13 Reasons Why is important, because this is such a common problem that 13 Reasons Why is actually mirroring what's happening in teens' lives and like high schools across the country currently. Suicide rates among teenagers have been rising in recent years, so 13 Reasons Why kind of is reflecting what's going on in our society.
And as we started to dig into a lot of the suicide stories in the media, we found one thing in common with all of them, which is they don't really follow the CDC's recommendation of how you should talk and handle suicides in the media. And it causes a lot of issues when they do that. They almost sensationalize it, so they make these people very, very relatable. For teenagers who are looking for someone in their same situation, they go, oh yeah, like, I am that bad. I am in that same situation. This is so similar to me. Maybe that solution is what I should do. Which actually kind of led us into our thesis, which is that in pop culture, suicide is actually viewed as almost a morbid form of entertainment.
So based off of what we've been looking at with 13 Reasons Why, we decided that the best way to really go about analyzing it was through semiotics and the symbolism that the show had, because there was a lot of deep meanings.
The first one we wanted to touch on are the 13 cassette tapes, and these are the 13 tapes that Hannah sends as her suicide note.
Denotatively, they are her suicide note, like it's very obvious that's what it is, but connotatively, when you look at it, they are actually kind of a representation of dealing with suicide. If you've ever experienced someone that's committed suicide and you're the person that's left behind, you have to, like, you basically have a burden that's actually on you that you have to work through, and you have to decide what to do with it. And ultimately the tapes kind of represent that for all of the characters in the show, because they have to decide if they're going to listen to them, if they're going to actually like deal with what they've been given, or if they're going to like throw it away or just pass it on to the next person. Like, they have to actually make active decisions of how they're going to cope with what they've been given.
Tapes, when they're given to the characters and the characters start to interact with them, you see this trend of becoming entertainment start to come out. So the characters do things like they binge listen to them the first time through, or they listen to them twice, and they have this disconnect between the horrible nature of what actually happened and what the tapes mean, that these are her final words, that this is the final voice that she had, that this is her suicide note. And they get caught up in the story of why it happened and in those minute details. They get caught up in the entertainment aspect of it and forget about the actual nature of it. The second really big symbolic situation is how the show chose to portray itself. So what's really interesting about 13 Reasons Why is when it was originally released, they did not put trigger warnings at the beginning of the episodes. And they didn't put a message at the end of it. So typically it's if you know anybody who's struggling with suicide, reach out to them with this number. We've all seen it on like ABC Family shows. But that is a distinct choice that the directors didn't choose to do. The only time they ever put a trigger warning on it is for the 2 cases of sexual assault. And it is a sexual assault trigger warning. It is not a bullying trigger warning or these other situations. And what's interesting about it is that the suicide itself is triggering, but the situations leading up to it, the verbal harassment, the depression itself, there was no warning saying, here are the signs of it, or this is what you can do to make it better. But 13 Reasons Why was portrayed as a type of entertainment instead of a tool to better handle suicide.
So in conclusion, 13 Reasons Why is fulfilling what pop culture is demanding of it. Even though people were really upset about the show, it was still the most watched show for the first 3 months after its release. Ultimately, we crave entertainment, not the facts. regardless if it involves the death of a teenage girl.